Friends. Ladies and gentlemen, to kickstart our lovely event this very morning, and of course, to deliver the welcome address, may I call upon the CEO of RSPO, Datuk Darrel Weber.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Savadi Kram. On behalf of myself and the RSPO Secretariat, I'd like to officially welcome you to Bangkok for our 17th Annual Roundtable Conference on Sustainable Palm Oil. I'd like to start first by saying a big thank you to our sponsors for supporting this year's event. Our gold sponsors are Sime Darby and Musim Mas, our smallholder sponsor, Procter & Gamble, our silver sponsors, Olam and KLK, our coffee break sponsors, Manorama Industries Limited and PepsiCo. These events would not be possible without the support from our sponsors, as well as the ongoing support and commitment from all of you who are in attendance today. Ladies and gentlemen, I have been haunted by 3 words since September. It was uttered by a 16-year-old child, Greta Thunberg, at a leaders' event in, I think, New York. She gave a very powerful speech, and she started the speech with 3 powerful words, which truly haunted me for a few weeks. She started her speech with, "How dare you?" And she spat it out with lots of venom and lots of passion. And then she went on to say that we had stolen her dreams and her childhood with our empty words. That for 30 years, the science on climate change had been clear. Yet, we continued to look away and in many forums say that we are doing enough. Even when it's blatantly clear that the politics and solutions are still nowhere in sight. That we try to placate her generation by saying we hear them and we understand the urgency, but alas, we don't act. That we pretend that this climate crisis can be solved with just business as usual and some technical solutions. And she closes her speech with probably the most impactful sentence that I have ever heard someone say. And she says, "You are failing us, but the young people are starting to understand your betrayal. The eyes of all future generations are upon you. And if you choose to fail us, we will never forgive you." Harsh words. But can we blame her generation for saying those words to us? Is she speaking any untruth? A scathing rebuke from a child would bring most people of conscience to their knees. And if it were to come from one of our children, I know for myself, I would hang my head in shame. Greta's message, and the message of the youth today, who fortunately for her are seated at the front rows today, I think coincides with our theme this year, which is a shared responsibility, converting commitments into action. We all know commitments and pledges are cheap. Some say a dime a dozen. But the real test is in the action. Now, most of you know that the RSPO is supposed to be a market-based solution. How are we doing today as this market-based solution? Let me explain to you, give you a description of a typical day of work for me and my team. So usually we start with the producers and we go to the producers and say, "Hello, Mr. Producer, come join RSPO." Or we say, "Hello, Mr. Producer, please plant more, please get certified. You're already a member, get moving, get certified." And usually the producer will say, "Well, Darrel, you know, it's too damn hard," number one. And then after all that hard work, no one recognizes us. No one wants to pay the extra, give us the extra income. and reward us for our efforts. And they say, we sell to the big processors and refiners, and they don't want to recognize this effort. So then, me and my team, we go to the refiners and the processors, and we say, hello, Mr. Refiner and Mr. Processor and Mr. Trader. Why won't you buy certified sustainable palm oil? And of course, they will say, the growers, they simply want too much. And the buyers who want to buy from us, we can't pass down that cost. So to solve this problem, Darrel, you need to go down to the downstream players. You need to talk to the consumer goods manufacturers and the retailers. They are the solution to this problem. So of course, being good servants of our members, we go down to our consumer goods manufacturers and retailers, and the consumer goods manufacturers say, come on, Darrel, get real. You know that consumers won't loosen their purse strings to pay more for good stuff. There is no demand for sustainable products, especially in this market or that market. And your brand, nobody really knows about the RSPO. Your trademark looks like a marijuana plant. Just ask the retailers, they'll agree with us. And of course, we then go down to the retailers and they say, absolutely, Darrel, we absolutely agree with the brands. The consumer's purse strings are drawn tight these days, and our current margins are razor thin. No one wants to pay for the good stuff. The solution is clear. It's the consumers we have to solve. It's a consumer issue. They are the real problem. These billions of faceless consumers who are bombarded daily with unlimited choices simply won't choose to do the right thing. We, of course, it's common wisdom to believe that the consumer must be able to discern what is right and take action to buy. Is that right? Well, if that's the case, then the RSPO is finished. Because we are a market-based solution who can't convince the ultimate beneficiary of this solution. Should we close shop? Well, of course, there's good news. The good news is humans are incredibly innovative. They are geniuses at many things. They are geniuses, in particular, at helping people make choices, and more importantly, help them to loosen their purse strings, to spend a little bit more for quality products. And the best news is, many of the geniuses are sitting in this room today, listening intently to what I have to say, I hope. For me, most of you will not know that for some years, I was an engineer designing and building retail outlets. Later on, I went to marketing, promoting that retail brand. After that, I went to sales and distribution with a large consumer good manufacturer. So I was the guy who took stuff, the consumer good, and put it on the shelves, and then marketed it and distributed the stuff. And you know what? After that short stint of about 10 years, I realized that yes, consumers make the ultimate purchasing decision. But there's a whole lot of effort put in by a lot of people to shape that decision. All of us, I'm sure, have experienced going to a shop and coming out of that shop with more stuff than they planned to buy that day. And a lot of times, price was not an issue. People forget that buying is led by emotions and then justified by logic later on. You want to know which brand is the leading brand in a particular category? Just go to a shelf at eye level, left-hand side most will be the leading category, the leading brand in that category. Why? Because people read from left to right, and you tend to pick up stuff left to right. That's how they do it. If you want to know where you are most likely to accidentally buy stuff, it's in what they call the power aisles, power alleys. At least that's what they called it when I was designing the retail outlets. It's placed between the destination point and the cashier, and that's where you are prone to accidentally buy stuff. So consumers, in fact, can make a decision to buy just about anything if given the right prompts. And it isn't always about pricing. It's about a lot more than that. So speaking of marketing, here's something I'd like to throw into this conversation. Most people know that there's a climate crisis taking place, right? We see the impacts every day. In the news today, we hear about India and its air pollution, but we know, for example, in Germany, Netherlands, and Belgium, they had the highest temperatures ever measured this year. Who can forget the terrible fires in the Amazon? And for those of us who live in Southeast Asia, who can forget the recent haze season? At one point, the RSPO was tracking 70,000 hotspots. So people across the globe are discussing these topics. It's a very pressing issue. It's a very current issue. But if you go to the media, social media, watch advertisements for products on electronic media or traditional media, I personally haven't seen any products being sold in a way that mitigates these impacts, that talks about how their products are produced in a way that helps mitigate the problems they see every day in the news. I haven't seen it. I wonder why. We, the RSPO, are proud to be acknowledged by third parties as having the most stringent standards in the world for growing and producing palm oil. Probably the most stringent standards for any agriculture crop. This was highlighted by many, many people. We are providing solutions on the topics of high carbon stock and its application of high forest cover landscapes. Our standards help our members to comply and exceed their no deforestation, no peat, no exploitation policies in a verifiable and transparent way. In fact, last year, we calculated that we saved 1.4 million tons of avoided carbon emissions, equivalent to removing 300,000 cars from the road that year. So, does the mainstream consumer sitting in the US or Europe or anywhere else not care for this issue of climate change? We know they do. So why not market to them what you're doing? Why not market to them that your products does indeed contain a commodity that is doing its very best to mitigate the horrific scenes they see on TV every day? I also want to mention, on the subject of marketing, since I have the opportunity here in a captive audience, that there is no use for a marketing campaign done by RSPO if we disregard one of the most important rules of marketing. I know this because I had to live through this 10 years. Before you do a campaign on a launch or a product or anything, you need to stock the shelves first. You need to have that product in the faces of the consumer, and then you do a campaign. So it's a chicken and egg thing. So I guarantee you, the demand for sustainable products will skyrocket if we reshape our thinking and make it extremely easy for consumers to find these items. Instead, what's happening? Consumers can easily find in well-labeled aisles no palm oil labels. I'm surprised that we haven't responded with aisles that say sustainable palm oil only products or sustainable something only product aisles. Why is it that the no palm oil labels get this front and center stage in the consumer's eyes? Ladies and gentlemen, despite the fear that our stringent standards will scare producers away, we have seen a 22% growth in certified sustainable palm oil production last year. Even smallholders are increasingly coming to us. We saw a 156% increase in certified smallholders. And we must applaud this. We should all give ourselves a big round of applause for that achievement. On the demand side, the numbers are not so glowing. Uptake grew by 2%. So you see, we must be thinking radically different now. Greta and her gang will not forgive us for not thinking differently. And I'm happy to say that the RSPO has stepped up a notch in recent times. I'd like to mention that the RSPO, on the 31st of October 2019, the Board of Governors have endorsed a shared responsibility requirements and implementation document. In it are the details of how RSPO members in the supply chain can convert their commitments to promote sustainable palm oil and turn it into action. This is by far the most tangible tool we have to measure our members' progress in an objective way, to measure how they convert commitments into actions. It is quite simply historic. And our sincere thanks to all of you who made it happen. Again, we should give them a round of applause. So no more mere commitments for us. It's now going to be measured in a transparent way. It's now going to be tracked in a transparent way. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that I have demonstrated to some small extent that there are other ways, new ways, well within our capacity to bring about change to address the biggest issues of our time, and that the RSPO has equipped its members with enough tools to convert commitments into action. So in the near future, when someone like Greta says to us, "How dare you?" we can respond proudly by saying, "Yes, we dared. We dared not to fail you. We dared to turn our words into commitments and into action. We dared." Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Datuk Darrel.